For a while now, we've known that the main antagonist of Netflix's Avatar The Last Airbender is Fire Lord Ozai, father of Prince Zuko and Princess Azula. Hardcore fans of the original animated series also remember that the main antagonist was the Fire Lord, and once we got confirmed that Netflix's adaptation was staying faithful to the animated series, we knew that this was going to be the case for the new live-action adaptation. But what if we told you that we're wrong about this and that the main antagonist isn't who we thought? What if who we knew as the hero is the actual villain? All of these questions will be answered by the end of this video, as we will be diving deep into why Aang is the real villain in Avatar The Last Airbender. Keep in mind that this video will contain spoilers for Netflix's Avatar The Last Airbender and possibly its source material, so take this as your spoiler warning. But before we begin, if you enjoy everything related to Avatar The Last Airbender and want to see more content like this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this channel since we will be discussing everything related to this series. Welcome to the Avatar State. Let's start things off in the beginning of Aang's journey. As a young child, a century before the events of Avatar The Last Airbender, Aang was an air nomad. As a powerful airbender, he spent a lot of time training and enjoying life among his airbending friends and families. Eventually, he was told the shocking news that he was destined to be the Avatar. These news came in as a shock to the young air nomad since he didn't want the responsibility, yet it was his job to enforce his destiny no matter what he actually wanted. The weight of that responsibility dragged Aang down, eventually causing him to jump on Appa and run away from everything he knew and abandoning his people. Aang's timing couldn't have been worse. As he abandons the Southern Air Temple, the Fire Nation led by Fire Lord Ozai decided to attack the Southern Air Temple while using the Great Comet, later renamed Ozai's Comet, to enhance their fire-bending abilities and wipe out the air nomads. This attack happened because Fire Lord Ozai wished to expand the Fire Nation into a worldwide empire and spread what he saw as his nation's prosperity to the rest of the world. By this time, the current Avatar had yet to be revealed. In Netflix's adaptation, Fire Lord Ozai was told that the Airbenders weren't a threat. Ozai then says that it wasn't about them, but the one who lives among them, the only one that can possibly stand in their way. Fire Lord Ozai's Fire Sage let him know that the Avatar was yet to be revealed. In response, Fire Lord Ozai said that it's why they needed to kill them all. And that's just what they did. They started their attack at the Southern Air Temple and wiped out all the air nomads there. Coincidentally, air nomads from all over the world had traveled to the Southern Air Temple for the festival of the Great Comet. The end result of not having an avatar to deal with things was the Fire Nation running roughshod over the world and killing untold numbers of people. Aang made a choice that cost the world dearly, since this was only the tip of the iceberg, since this attack was the beginning of a 100-year war that is still ongoing. Some may argue that Aang literally just found out that he was the Avatar, and that although he was a master airbender, he still hadn't trained on the other bending disciplines, or even learned what the Avatar state was at the time. Yes, this argument is true, but you have to keep in mind that once he came face to face with the threat and he was in danger, the Avatar state was going to do its job. How exactly, you may ask? For those of you who don't know, the Avatar state works in two ways, reflexively and masterfully. In this case, the Avatar state would be activated reflexively, which is when the state activates without the Avatar calling on it. The state works this way almost exclusively when it is triggered as an instinctive, unconscious reaction, defense mechanism, for when an avatar's physical capabilities would be insufficient to confront the current threat, or in situations of extreme emotion, specifically rage and sorrow. When the state is triggered this way, the current avatar has little to no control over the performed actions and may retain little to no memory of what happened. Though this is not always the case. We actually saw this for the first time when Aang froze himself and Appa in the iceberg. After he was freed from the ice, Aang returned to his former home and found that firebenders had wiped out his air nomad tribe. If the young Avatar didn't run away from being the Avatar, there is a real chance that his tribe would have survived, and that way it would either prevent the war from happening or at least delayed it significantly. Things don't end here, since Aang also did a few things that reinforce the thought of him being the real villain of the series. Being that Aang was destined to be the Avatar, it's easy to forget that he was still a kid. The Avatar was, for all intents and purposes, the leader of the known world. It was a lot of responsibility to be heaped onto a child. Keeping that in mind, there were a lot of times that Aang just didn't seem to take the situation all that seriously. This would come up early on in the series, as Aang often lost focus on his mission and would just end up playing with Appa, Momo, or Katara. Yes, we have to keep in mind he is still a child, and it was inevitable that these things were bound to happen. Not only that, but it also helped him relax for a bit and not have him deal with the fact that the fate of the world was on his hands, a burden that is heavy for anyone to carry, even more on a kid. There was something that was said in Netflix's adaptation that kind of counters this argument. In the first episode of the series, Katara explains to Aang that she knows how he feels and proceeds to tell him how everything has been for her and Sokka since they were little, how the Fire Nation attacked Wolf Cove, and her father and the other warriors left to hunt them down, leaving Sokka in charge at the age of 13, and because of it, they had to grow up fast and not really have a childhood like other normal kids. As a final argument, we will be taking a look at something that happened in the animated series and is happening in Netflix's adaptation. Being the Avatar meant learning and mastering all forms of bending. Being that Aang had grown up as an airbender, he was already quite proficient at that when Katara and Sokka found him. That just left earth, fire, and water. Katara helped guide Aang to being a waterbender, and Toph showed him how to earthbend. When it came to firebending, Aang really kind of dragged his butt on his training. There are a lot of reasons why he did this, but none of them changed the fact that he extended the overall conflict unnecessarily. Like we mentioned, this is something that is happening in Netflix's version of Avatar The Last Airbender. By now, Aang could have been practicing his water bending and getting ahead on his journey to master the 4 elements. Yet he never did, even when Katara let him know that he should be practicing as well. Avoiding his responsibilities isn't going to change the fact that he is still the Avatar and that he needs to master all 4 elements to stop the 100-Year War. These are just examples on how Aang is the real villain of the story by avoiding his responsibilities and not accepting his fate. Tell us, what's your opinion on this? Did we miss anything? Thanks for watching the video. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this.